necessarily just at a certain part of the market, but we do know that when it comes to electrified vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles or battery electric vehicles have common parts. And we're talking about batteries, we're talking about the transaxle motor, we're talking about PCU.
And I'm actually jobless now.
I know you're busier now, you don't have to. We'll talk about that. So we have a few interesting questions to discuss. You don't need much introduction, but former governor of Jakarta, presidential candidate in this country for the elections in 2024.
Necessarily just at a certain part of the market, but we do know that when it comes to electrified vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles or battery electric vehicles have common parts. And we're talking about batteries, we're talking about the transaxle motor, we're talking about PCU.
Sumber daya dan penggunaan sumber-sumber yang bisa diperbarui menjadi keharusan. Saya beri contoh misalnya ketika dulu kami di Jakarta, kita mulai dengan mengkonversi kendaraan-kendaraan umum itu menggunakan listrik. Jadi ada dua tahap. Satu mengkonversi publik dari kendaraan pribadi ke kendaraan umum, dan kendaraan umumnya berbasis listrik, sehingga dapat dua-duanya. Satu adalah tentang pengurangan emisinya, yang kedua adalah pengurangan
complexity like Jakarta and making that sustainable. What lessons can you learn from your experience there?
Sure. Thank you, Yudit, Pak Bambang, Pak Ridwan Kamil, and all participants. It is indeed, the question is not about whether living in a cities or mega city is sustainable. The question is how to make living in a city sustainable. Because you know that the world cities occupy about 3% of the earth, but cities account 60 to 80% of energy consumption and 75% of carbon emissions. That's sort of the one side. But on the other side, cities are also economic engine of the world, and the majority of the population is now living in cities. So we must understand that a fight for climate must also be a fight for better livelihood. And the vast majority of people are still struggling with basic needs. That is what we are also experiencing. And, they come to cities hoping to find better opportunities. Those urbanizations will continue. And therefore, effort to tackle climate change must also be understood by the people as means to improve their livelihood. So we're glad that Jakarta, I'm happy to report here, is on the right track in fulfilling the climate target. 2 years ago, in 2020, Jakarta reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by 26%. And with that pace, we're optimistic that 30% reductions of emissions that is targeted in the year 2030 can be achieved much sooner than expected. Because imagine in 2020, we reached 26%. So we have 8 years to go and more 4% to reach. On the other hand, we are also succeeded in showing our economic resilience by a rebound from its lowest economic growth, negative 2.4% when the pandemic hit us in 2020. And we're back to positive 5.6% in the second quarter of 2022. So if we had to share one of significant progress over the past 5 years, I would say it's a transportation reform. The reform in that sector has produced significant impact. Transport, as we know, produces a significant amount of emissions. And in Jakarta, it contributes the largest share of emissions. It is around 70%. So shifting the public away from cars and motorcycles into public transport And non-motorized transport is one of the best way to tackle climate issues in cities. And I think this is some of our important lessons. And providing an integrated and reliable public transportation system here in Jakarta, which we produce through a system called Jaklingko, became our priority, and it has made a huge change in our city. So transportation costs was estimated make up about 30% of household expenses. And with the new approach, citizens are now paying only 10,000 rupiah, around 60% in US dollars, to go anywhere in the cities. And in addition to affordability, an integrated public transport system also offers reliability, which increases productivity. And also, there is a positive side impact, which is promote social interactions. So the benefit, not only the community through its reliable services, but also the transport operators, the laborers, and everyone in the ecosystem were
Do a quick round. If each of you can summarize in one sentence or less, you have to each describe such thoughtful responses to how to build sustainable cities. But here's my question. If you were leading a whole country, what is the one thing you would do to ensure it is resilient and sustainable? Maybe we can start with Panis.
Resilience and?
Sustainable, Pak.
We really have to make our cities more livable, and we have no choice. We don't want to move to Mars. We want to stay in our cities. And so we had no choice but to make our cities more livable. And doing so, we need the political will. The technology is there. The policy instrument is there. What is often absent is political will translated into fiscal and policy actions. That's what's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak. Let's go to Pak Ridwan and Pak Bambang.
Yes, I think great life is a balanced life. All problems comes from excessive lifestyle in the form of economy, excessive in the form of social lifestyle and many things. Yeah. So I think the goal of sustainable is basically balancing how we progress with economy, how we inclusive.
Who were leading a whole country, what is the one thing you would do to ensure it is resilient and sustainable? Maybe we can start with Panis.
Resilience and?
Sustainable, Pak.
We really have to make our cities more livable, and we have no choice. We don't want to move to Mars. We want to stay in our cities. And so we had no choice but to make our cities more livable. And doing so, we need the political will. The technology is there. The policy instrument is there. What is often absent is political will translated into fiscal and policy actions. That's what's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak.